Some of the most memorable Olympic moments are also the most notorious, and it's not all just East German judges. Here are 12 of the biggest scandals in Olympic history. Russian duo Yelena Beretznaya and Anton Sakaralitsa won the gold medal in pairs figure skating, and they certainly weren't bad skaters. The thing is that Canadian skaters Jamie Salé and David Pelletier were awarded silver medals, which felt sketchy for a specific reason.
It was 5 judges to 4, and you could say that the deciding vote was the French judge.
The judge's decision was quickly called into question and eventually overturned when evidence of conspiracy, collusion, and vote rigging came to light.
As I'm home practicing, the Russian mob is fixing the Olympics.
The International Skating Union determined that French judges Marie-Reine Laguna and Didier Gallagher had voted for the Russian pair, not because their skating was the best, but because Gallagher had made an arrangement with Russian ice dancing judges to falsely inflate the scores of French athletes in the ice dancing competition. Laguna initially claimed that she'd legitimately voted for the Russian team, but later admitted that she'd acted under orders from Gallagher, head of France's ice sports governing organization. Both officials were suspended from all international skating events for 3 years, as well as from anything to do with the 2006 Winter Olympics. Beretznaya and Sakaralitsa got to keep their gold medals, while Salé and Pelletier had their silver medals upgraded to gold. This is the thing you never knew about the Nancy Kerrigan versus Tonya Harding shenanigans. Harding wasn't supposed to be there. She competed in the 1992 Winter Games, and come 1996, she would have likely been too old. But since the IOC moved the Winter Games to a different even year, that's how we got the 1994 Games in Lillehammer and the spectacle that became Nancy versus Tonya. Nancy Kerrigan was expected to do well at the 1994 Winter Olympics, as was 1991 U.S. national champion Tonya Harding. Even before Whacking Day, the media whipped up a rivalry between the two very different skaters.
Folks that tune in to ice skating normally are expecting a certain look and a certain skater and a certain background.
Kerrigan was clean-cut and delicate. As for Harding, she was a buzzsaw. Just before the 1994 U.S. Championship, she declared, "I'm going to go there and kick some butt." 2 days later, an assailant whacked Kerrigan in the knee with a baton at a practice facility in Detroit. She was so badly hurt that she couldn't skate at nationals, which Harding won. Meanwhile, an FBI investigation into the assault broke wide open after a tip came in from a minister in Harding's hometown. He'd heard Harding's bodyguard Sean Eckhart, her ex-husband Jeff Gillooly, and friend Shane Stant discussing how they'd clubbed Kerrigan. Eckhart confessed, and Stant and Gillooly gave themselves up to authorities. After weeks of denying involvement, Harding gave a press conference at which she apologized for knowing about the attack and doing nothing to prevent it. While Gillooly and company faced charges, Harding was allowed to skate in the Olympics, where she finished 8th. Kerrigan took home the silver medal. That's another part of the story people forgot. Oksana Bayul won gold skating for Ukraine. That March, Harding pled guilty to conspiracy to hinder the prosecution. She was fined $160,000 and sentenced to 3 years probation. Already the owner of 11 Olympic medals, swimmer Ryan Lochte got even more famous when he won gold in the 200-meter freestyle relay at the 2016 Summer Olympics in Rio. Then he and his teammates Gunnar Bensch, Jack Conger, and Jimmy Fegan were reportedly attacked. Lochte told NBC News, "We got pulled over in the taxi and these guys came out with a badge, a police badge. No lights, no nothing, just a police badge, and they pulled us over. They pulled out their guns. They told the other swimmers to get down on the ground. They got down on the ground."
I refused. I was like, we didn't do anything wrong, so I'm not getting down on the ground.
Lochte said a man placed a gun to his head, seized his wallet, and fled. It caused an international incident. This would be one of the biggest scandals by a host country ever.
But it wasn't.
That's right. None of it happened.
Lochte and his teammates were so drunk that they couldn't give a coherent description of their assailants or their getaway car.
Days later, Lochte admitted that he'd made the whole thing up. Not only that, but he left out the part where he and his teammates trashed the gas station bathroom. He was suspended from swimming for 10 months and charged with falsifying a police report, but a judge dismissed the case 5 years later. At the 2021 U.S. Olympic trials, American sprinter Sha'Carri Richardson won the 100-meter race with a time of 10.86 seconds, which would have landed her a spot in the upcoming COVID-19 delayed 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. Instead, after the trials, Richardson's drug test came up positive for THC, a psychoactive chemical in marijuana. While recreational and medicinal marijuana use are variously legal in most of the United States, Olympic rules outweigh U.S. state law. Richardson admitted to using marijuana to curb anxiety she experienced while grieving the death of her biological mother. USA Track and Field issued a 30-day suspension for Richardson, effectively banning her from the upcoming Summer Olympics.
Don't judge me because I am human. I'm you. I just happen to run a little faster.
She's fast at everything, apparently. Richardson was also arrested in January 2026 under Florida's new super speeder law, clocked in at 104 miles per hour in Winter Garden right outside Orlando. She was also tailgating and driving recklessly, according to the report. Heading into the 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul, one of the most anticipated matchups was between American sprinter Carl Lewis, looking to add to the 4 medals he'd won in 1984, and Canada's Ben Johnson, who'd set a new 100-meter record at the 1987 World Championships with 9.83 seconds. Fans got their wish as both runners wound up in the final. Less than 10 seconds later, it was all over. Johnson won gold with a time of 9.79 seconds, another new record. Canada went from jubilation to sad maple leaf in an instant.
Good evening. The nation is in shock tonight over the downfall of a Canadian hero.
Just after the race, Johnson was drug tested, which was a regular occurrence. But when the results came in about 3 days later, there was evidence of stanozolo in his system, a banned anabolic steroid. Johnson told the IOC that the herb supplement beverage he'd had just before running had been laced with steroids without his knowledge, but the committee didn't buy it. They ordered him to return home to Canada and give up his gold medal. Johnson was banned from competing in track and field events for 2 years, and his Olympics and World Championship times were struck from the official tallies. Second place finisher Carl Lewis, on his way to becoming an Olympic athlete with the most gold medals ever, since lapped by Michael Phelps, was declared the winner, and his time of 9.92 seconds was recognized as the new world record. The winner of the Olympic decathlon is unofficially dubbed the world's greatest athlete. In 1912, American athlete Jim Thorpe won both the decathlon and the 5-event pentathlon. To win both was an unheard-of achievement, never since repeated. After the Olympics, the wildly famous Thorpe returned to school and put up some of the best running back stats of all time for the Carlisle Indian Industrial School's football team, posting a 12-1-1 record. At that point, reporter Roy Johnson went digging and discovered that Thorpe had played baseball for the semi-professional Eastern Carolina Association in the summers of 1909 and 1910. He was paid $5 a game, which negated his amateur athlete status, a strict rule for Olympians at the time. The New England Association of the Amateur Athletic Union filed a grievance against Thorpe in January 1913, and Thorpe released a signed confession along with a plea for mercy. The International Olympic Committee was unmoved, took back his gold medals, and vacated Thorpe's historic victories. In 1982, 70 years after winning them and 29 years after his death, the IOC restored Thorpe's medals and listed him as a co-champion in both events. 40 years later, in 2022, Thorpe was elevated back to the sole champion, fully recognizing his 1912 wins. At the 1968 Summer Olympics in Mexico City, American runner Tommie Smith won the gold medal in the 200 meters with a world record-setting time of 19.83 seconds. He received his award alongside his teammate, bronze medal recipient John Carlos. As the country's national anthem played, a quiet, powerful, and coordinated protest began.
Did I want to do it? No, but I had to do it.
Smith wore a black scarf, a symbol of black pride, and he raised his closed right fist, clad in a black glove, the Black Power salute. Carlos wore a necklace of beads, a nod to lynchings of black people in the US, and also held his left gloved fist upward. They only had one set of gloves, so the two split them for unity. Both men wore black socks and no shoes, an allusion to the historical and systemic subjugation and poverty faced by black Americans.
Had I been a good boy in Mexico, I could have probably been monetarily richer, and I would have probably been a bigger figure than I am right now.
The International Olympic Committee was livid. They released a statement reading, "The untypical exhibitionism of these athletes violates the basic standards of good manners and sportsmanship, which are so highly valued in the United States." The committee suspended both athletes and stripped them of their Olympic credentials, forcing them to return to the US within 2 days' time. The fallout, which really lasted both athletes' lifetimes, was more about the time and place for the protest. But despite any sympathies felt back in the US, neither ever really shook their pariah status. Boris Onashenko of the Soviet Union won 2 silver medals and 1 gold in the pentathlon at the 68 and 72 games respectively. He was expected to do just as well or better at the 1976 Summer Olympics in Montreal. His specialty was fencing, and before his match with the UK's Jim Fox, Onashenko led the field in that event. During the bout, Onashenko jerked forward with his epée extended and registered a hit on his opponent. In high-level competition, touches are registered with electronics, and Olympians wear special gear that responds when wired swords make contact. Onyshenko's touch triggered lights and a buzzer to mark the point, but Fox claimed he hadn't been touched at all. After a brief investigation, it was discovered that the Soviet fencer's sword had been altered. Put another way, he cheated. The head disciplinary judge told the New York Times, "The weapon definitely had been tampered with. Someone had wired it in such a way that it would score a winning hit even without making contact." Onyshenko was immediately kicked out of the pentathlon and the Olympics, despite his claims that he didn't mess with the sword himself.
Most people don't even know that there was a bribery scandal.
Salt Lake City landed the 2002 Winter Olympics, but organizers didn't play by the rules. They won the bid in 1995 after 4 previous attempts, but this time they did things differently. After learning that representatives of Nagano, Japan spent $14 million to convince IOC bigwigs to give them the 1998 Winter Olympics, the Salt Lake City contingent knew what they had to do. During the bid process, certain IOC members each received about $1 million worth of scholarships, luxury items, healthcare payments, and just plain cash, courtesy of the Utah Collective. In the city's defense, at the time, bribery was very common among potential host cities and Olympic Committee members. I know you're shocked. In fact, Melbourne tried to get the 1996 Summer Olympics, but refused to honor IOC member requests for brand new cars and arranged visits to brothels. Salt Lake City's backroom deals came to light when a letter detailing a tuition payment was obtained by local TV station KTVX. But here's the thing, secrets came out in 1998, which was far too late for officials to even think about taking the games out of Salt Lake City. The gold medal match in the light middleweight boxing division at the 1988 Summer Olympics in South Korea pitted Roy Jones Jr. against local favorite Park Si-hun. We'd love to show you the actual fight, but the Olympics are quite copyright heavy, so here's the, well, blow by blow, literally. The 3-round match found Jones putting on a show, landing almost 3 times as many blows as Park, with a final count of 86-32. Jones clearly controlled all 3 rounds, but because there was no knockout or technical knockout, the decision went to the judges, who generally look at things like total punches landed. Jones looked like the obvious winner, but the judges handed the gold medal to Park with a score of 3-2. Fans, fighters, and onlookers were so stunned by the call that boxing's international governing body at the time, the International Amateur Boxing Association, launched an investigation.
You took a gold medal from a 19-year-old kid.
All 3 judges earned 6-month suspensions, and 2 were permanently banned from the sport. Soon after, computerized scoring was instituted by Olympic boxing. One of the disgraced judges claimed to have voted for Park because he wanted to give the host nation a win.
It hurt the sport of boxing, especially amateur boxing.
In 1996, a former Stasi East German document was discovered that alleged that boxing judges were being paid off to award victories to South Korean boxers. The IOC did an investigation in 1997 and found no evidence of bribery. But the story has a good ending. In late 2025, Park gave Jones the gold medal, at last setting things right. Men's basketball became an official Olympic event in 1936, and in every Summer Games through 1968, the US team took home the gold medal. But in 1972, the streak ended when the Soviet Union took the gold medal match. This wasn't just a shocking turn of events, it was also mired in controversy and sketchy officiating. So here's the part of the story you don't know. The Soviets were actually up the entire game. It was only a steal by Doug Collins with about 6 seconds left and a subsequent foul that gave Team USA a shot at victory. Collins made 2 free throws with 3 seconds remaining to give his squad a 50-49 edge. When the Soviet team then inbounded the ball, assistant coach Sergei Bashkin ran to the scorer's table claiming they'd called a timeout with 1 second left. That's when R. William Jones, the head of international basketball, came down from the stands and demanded that the clock reset to 3 seconds. So the inbound was repeated, but the clock didn't run at all. So while the Americans were celebrating a Soviet miss, Jones demanded that the Soviets be given another inbound pass. This time, the Soviet team pulled off a full-court pass and layup before time ran out. Final score, 51-50. Soviet Union wins. The US team protested the loss to global basketball governing body FIBA, which upheld the Soviet win. The US players were so disgusted and angry that they refused to take possession of their silver medals.